Now, let's unpack all of this. Political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe joins me now. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. We do appreciate it. I must say that the closing remarks by President Cyril Ramaphosa were rather underwhelming, especially because he didn't touch on the biggest elephant in the room, that being Palapala saga. But we'll get into that just now. What was your initial response to what the president had to say?
Well, normally you have the usual statement by the ANC as a liberation movement to indicate that it is still committed to the transformation of this country, especially the economy. And invariably, there will be an issue of black economic empowerment. And of course, like your coverage, the issue of coalitions has been bedeviling this country in the sense that there's been much more instability in that area. And the ANC can as well say they are not working, but ultimately the coalitions come as a result of what happens on the ground. It's simply a mandate that comes from the electorate. It's not what any party wants. When you don't have an outright majority, what it means that the voters are not saying we are convinced that on your own you should actually be leading this country. The ANC has had an opportunity to run this country as a government that is not in coalition with any party. And the history of the ANC has been the history of failure. So the idea and comments around coalition is simply a reflection of the ANC. Had it done its job properly, it would have continued. One must also remember that there was a time when the ANC was running all the metros. It lost Cape Town and has never been able to regain. The same ANC was able to run the whole province of Western Cape. It lost, it never regained. So effectively, part of the failures have more to do with the ANC. And the electorate are saying, we are not entrusting you. Hence, we end up with the coalitions. So if the ANC wants to do away with coalitions, they must do much, they have to do much better. And it is not really up to them, it is up to the voters.
And I'm sure a lot of self-reflection and looking inwards at the conduct of the ANC, especially in many of these metros where you have voters saying we are just not satisfied. I want us to speak about, move over to issues that still pertain to people and those on the ground, and how Cyril Ramaphosa was speaking about how the issues of poverty, inequality and unemployment still remain a huge challenge. But he didn't really say much. He just said that these issues need to be addressed. And he also spoke about how load shedding is having a huge impact on our economy. But still, again, you're touching on matters that we are aware of and not necessarily bringing us those solutions that are needed.
Well, what we know now, and given also the performance of the ANC in the last elections during the local government elections, is that the people have sent a message that we no longer trust you as a government and as a party that can address our issues. And in the last 5 years, since Ramaphosa took over as the leader of the ANC, we have not seen much progress in terms of the promises that he had made. He had come in under the ticket of a number of things, that there'll be economic growth. Things have gotten worse since he took over. He talked about dealing with corruption. We know that during the COVID-19, there was a lot of corruption. And if you look at the surveys that were done by Afrobarometer, they say actually corruption has actually deepened. They even went to an extent where the people are saying they also suspect that there's a lot of corruption also in the presidency. And now we have the Palapala matter, and we've seen the president who has been ducking and diving. So these are the things that he had promised and he had failed. He talked about load shedding, but we know as a matter of fact, whatever the reasons people put, we know that load shedding came back 2018 when he took over. So all these things that he says are things that he had actually failed. Actually, the level of confidence of the people in the ANC has actually gone down. So these are simply statements that have become meaningless. What people are looking at is probably parties that will probably help the ANC or push the ANC out of power. Hence, almost the ushering in or the emergence of coalitions in many of the metros. So it is simply a reflection of how the voters feel on the ground about the Party of Liberation.
Professor, do you think it was intentional that nothing was mentioned about Palapala?
Well, it was intentional in a sense that the party is divided on that matter. What we know is that when the president had an opportunity to address or give a political report, he decided to talk about it. And in a sense, what he was doing was taking a preemptive stance because he knew quite well and very well that some members of the ANC were going to raise the issue of Palapala because Palapala has become almost the main discussion in our body politic. So when he said that and commented, he was going to give only as little as he can to say, or repeat what he had said, that he's actually innocent. But we must also remember a number of things. One, this is the president who was not willing to say anything telling us that there's a due process. Now, suddenly, due process is gone. And two, he says he's innocent. And people have asked a simple question, that if this money that you're talking about is legitimate, how come it was put in the house, not in the bank? How come it was hidden in the mattresses? These are questions that he could not respond to. And there are other serious allegations that have been made against him. One is that in the process, the people were kidnapped, people were tortured, and also people were bribed. These are serious allegations against the president. But I guess the ANC is also taking a view that says maybe we should wait and to hear what the panel says. But as President Beki had indicated, that the ANC cannot duck this issue of Palapala, because as soon as you have a finding by a panel led by a former Chief Justice, it will have serious repercussions. So rather than jump the gun, they would rather wait for that outcome. But what we know is that the president who said he is gagged by the pipe protector, suddenly when it's convenient is able to say something about this matter. But also, even so, the president could have told the country and the ANC the truth. The nonsense about due process is not sustainable, because the truth does not interrupt or undermine due process. Actually, if you tell the truth, you might actually have the whole process of due process, in a sense that the people can easily come to a determination based on the truth. But if you hide the truth, you can't begin to say you are committed to transparency, to dealing with corruption. But most importantly, this is a president who runs to the courts all the time. If he was gagged by the public protector, he could have gone to the court to say, I want to tell the truth so much that I'm going to challenge her gagging me, because the people of this country deserve the truth. But we know that he can tell, he talks right or left, and he walks. He's not able to walk the talk. And but what we also know is that whatever the ANC can tell the people, the ANC has actually failed, both in government and also it has failed in terms of giving a sense of a party that is united.
Certainly. I think the infighting and the factions within the ANC is very evident, and that's, of course, trickling down to the people, which is rather unfortunate. But thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. That was Professor Sipho Seepe speaking to us about the recent ANC NEC and the closing remarks by President Cyril Ramaphosa.